Hello, afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining this webinar session. So today I'm really wanting to take you through our supply chain development program at CSconnected, which is funded by the Cardiff Capital Region. This is the third call. So what I want to do actually first is talk you through a little bit about CSconnected first, because some of you may not be aware. But probably what I should do first is actually start with an introduction about myself. So my name is Hazel Hung. I am the Business Development Manager for CSconnected. I have a history in photonics, and I've been with the cluster for nearly 4 years now. So I was previously at Cardiff University as a program manager, and then I moved over to CSconnected team November last year full time. So just a bit about CSconnected then. So we are a not-for-profit organisation, and our main purpose is to support the growth of the cluster in South Wales, the compound semiconductor cluster. We have 4 core areas throughout, our team that we support promotion of the cluster and our partners, and I'll show you, who those companies are later on. But we go around to different events promoting the capabilities of the compound semiconductor cluster in South Wales, and we do that on a local, national, and international basis. So we go to different trade shows. The last couple of weeks, we've had a few delegations from different countries. We've had delegations from the Netherlands and yesterday from Indonesia that we've taken part in. So we really try to promote the cluster, particularly on a global stage, and also try and attract companies to come and set up in the region if they want to, and so that they can become closer to the ecosystem here. On the skills and talent side as well, we work very closely with the universities, but also the colleges and education providers across South Wales to try and support the talent pipeline for the cluster. On the supply chain development side, that's my area. So working with suppliers of the cluster, but also the companies themselves, the cluster partners themselves, really to try and promote, grow the community, if you like, grow the SME community. And then lastly, we also try and attract funding for the cluster. So this also talks to policy engagement with UK government, Welsh government, and also local, so Cardiff Capital Region as well. So these are just some figures across those different core areas. So on the promotion side, you can see that we've attend lots of different events in the last 12 months, 93 events, different PR as well. So we try to get the CSconnected cluster visible out in the public domain. And as I was mentioning about FDI, then in the since 2019, we've, as a cluster, attracted 14 entities to the region. So there'll be, sometimes it's companies that want to set up a base in the region to work more closely with us. In 2027, we'll be hosting an international conference on silicon carbide. So we're really happy. It's an international conference that, this year was held in South Korea and in Busan. Next year we'll be in Yokohama in Japan. So we're really excited to have that in Newport in 2027. On the skills and talent side, my colleague, the skills manager, Brandon, he has engaged, he and his team have engaged with 16,000 individuals since August 2024. So, he's worked with different education colleges and education providers as well to basically try and get young people and excited about the sector. And that's right from primary school, so year 5, 6 primary school through to secondary school, college, and university as well. On the supply chain side as well, we kicked off our supply chain development program, and of course I'll tell you more later. But we kicked that off earlier in the year, and we had held two supply chain events earlier in the year. So these were in-person events in Newport, and managed to attract over 40 plus suppliers into the room together with our partners as well. So it was a really good way to try to bring the wider community together. And then in terms of public funding for the cluster as well, I think I mentioned multi-level engagement with local Welsh and UK government. We've attracted, as a cluster, attracted £500 million of investment in infrastructure. We've been recognised in UK policy documents, and very active in collaborative and our R&D as well. So semiconductors and compound semiconductors as a market, for those of you who don't know. So compound semiconductors takes up around about 20% of the wider semiconductor market, which is a huge market. It's $60 billion, growing at 7% each year. And our focus in the cluster in South Wales is largely in compound and advanced semiconductors. It's for those of you who don't know, compound semiconductors allows you to do all these different types of applications. So it allows you to emit and detect light. So LEDs are a great example of compound semiconductors. RF as well on your mobile phone will have compound semi on it, and on the power side as well, if you wanted to charge your car fast, then compound semiconductors is really great enabler of that. So you can do the exciting stuff with compound semiconductors, and South Wales has had expertise in the semiconductor area since the 1980s. And I'll talk more in details about the companies later on, but companies like IQE, KLA, Vishay, Microchip have all had presence in South Wales since around about the 80s. Some of them have changed names, most of them have changed names. I think IQE is maybe the only one that hasn't changed its name. But there's been a long history in the area, and including at the university. So Swansea and Cardiff University both have, done a lot of work back in the 80s. And, up until recently, these companies, these organizations have been working roughly in silos. There have been some sort of bilateral collaborations, for example, with IQE and Cardiff University, but largely there was no cluster back then, and it was only probably in over 10 years ago that the kind of the idea of the cluster started to come together. So 10 years ago, you could say that it was when the concept of the cluster kind of formally came together, and this is basically what we call the phase one of the cluster, where we established a collaborative R&D ecosystem. So Cardiff University and Swansea University both had investment approved for these open access fabs back in 2015. Also, there was a joint venture between IQE and Cardiff University called Compound Semiconductor Centre at the same time as well, that really formed part of that, kicked off this whole concept of the cluster. Also, we had the Mega Foundry at IQE as well, and of course, the establishment of the CSA Catapult in Newport. Then in 2020, we had this project called Under the Strength in Places programme. So this is the UKRI funded programme. It's around about a £40 million project as a whole, with £25 million of grant funding. And it really brought together all these, the major partners within the cluster on a project also called CSconnected. But it really started to form that collaborative ecosystem within the cluster. And then, from that time onwards, then KLA also had a major expansion, and then the fabs that I was talking about at Cardiff and Swansea University also started to come online. And of course, Vichy as well bought out the Newport Wafer Fab site in 2024. So now we're looking to phase 3, so really starting to build on the momentum of that collaboration ecosystem. Starting to look at supporting the supply chain expansion through this program, but also looking for further investment into the region through the investment zone. Other ways to support more funding into the cluster, but also working strongly with the partners. KLA as well. KLA have got further expansion plans as well. Vichy as well, it has had a lot of exciting new investments in the region as well. So we're that's our next phase beyond 2025 to 2030 is further growth of the cluster, and that's our core mission in CSconnected as an organization, if you like, to continue driving the growth of that cluster. So let me just talk about then who the core cluster partners are. These are where the purple dots are. Those would be the core cluster partners that were formerly under the UKRI Strength in Places program. And you can see it stretches the organisation stretch across from Swansea, where Swansea University is, right across to Microchip based in Caldecott. So again, through the Strength in Places program, every year since 2019, there's been an economic report looking at the annual growth figures of the cluster. So how many employees, the GVA, and the export and sales figures as well. So the last report was in 2024. So roughly the cluster supports 3,000 jobs in Wales with over 350 million pounds in GVA and nearly £500,000 in annual sales, of which 90% is export. We also last week we had our 10-year anniversary. It was an opportunity to kind of look back over the last 10 years of what we've achieved and those people that helped us achieve, we reach where we are today. But yeah, also, you can see on this slide that over the last 10 years, there's been approximately £1 billion of investment into the cluster. So 850 million in facilities and over 150 million in collaborative R&D programs. So you can just see on the left with the pictures, there's the KLA expansion here. If you could see my mouse pointer, this is Vichy on the top right, the CSA catapult here. This is Centre 7, so it's based at Cardiff Gate, just off the motorway, and that's a building that was bought by Welsh Government to really support the incoming companies in the semiconductor sector. So they're just building a new sort of landing space, if you like. There'll be incubator space there for companies. So that's where CSconnected, as a team, we're based there, along with Microlink Devices, and also Novomorphic will be based there, and other companies as well will be coming in gradually. So we really hope there'll be a real sense of community within that building once it's fully fitted out. We've got the Cardiff University fab there, and the Swansea University fab, and then IQE and CSE. So the Mega Foundry on the left and the IQE in St Mellons on the right there. And so going forwards, our future ambition is to grow to over £1 billion in 2020. So basically doubling our revenue, doubling the skills numbers as well. So we need an additional 3,000 people. So we need to really push on the skills side of things as well, and also, really try to capture value in well-paid jobs. And really going forward to start to formalize the expansion of the cluster and who those cluster partners are. Then we will be launching a membership model. So the details are on our website now if people are interested in looking at that, and how you can begin to engage more closely with the cluster community. Okay, so hopefully that gives you an idea of who CSconnected are and where we are headed now. So now I'll move on to the main event, which is the supply chain development program. So I really want to start by setting the scene, if you like, of the compound semiconductor supply chain, and where our core partners sit within that. So we have IQE, who it was a manufacturer of epitaxy wafers. They have expertise in epitaxy, but also that logo underneath is the logo for Compound Semiconductor Centre. So they started off as a joint venture between IQE and Cardiff University about 10 years ago, but then now they're a wholly owned subsidiary of IQE. So if you want to do product development there, then that could be done at CSC, whereas in the full production could then be done at IQE. On the wafer fabrication side, Vishay do wafer fabrication for power electronics devices. So they basically would take an epi wafer and then process it, and then create these individual die. At Cardiff University and Swansea University, that we're very lucky in South Wales to have 2 open access fabs. So Swansea University works very closely with Vishay on the power electronic side, so silicon carbide related devices, and also other power devices like gallium nitride as well. And Cardiff University, the expertise is more on the photonics and RF side. So on the photonics side, they do work very closely with IQE on things like VCSEL lasers that, for example, on your iPhone, the Face ID scanner is a VCSEL laser that most likely will have had the epitaxy done at IQE. KLA manufacture equipment. So they manufacture etch and deposition equipment for wafer fabrication. So they are based in Newport, and they're a very big employer in the region as well. And then also Microchip, they do packaging and module integration. So they do power modules for the mobility sector, if you like. So for trains, also automotive as well, and also then the Catapult also does packaging and module integration, but on the research and technology organization side, so bridging that gap between academia and industry, as well as kind of full test and characterization capabilities they have there. So these are our core cluster partners, and so as part of this program, we want to look at who those suppliers are into this supply chain, if you like. So we'd be looking at gas suppliers, advanced manufacturing services, specialist design tools, those kind of companies. So through this supply chain call, we really want to start to think about who are the suppliers within South Wales, across the bridge, wider into the UK as well, who the suppliers are that could work with the cluster. So there are existing suppliers and buyers in the UK, but we really want to draw out also the potential ones, strengthen the existing ones, and then look to who the potential new buyers and suppliers could be. So what we've looked at is, identify across South Wales and across the bridge as well. We've identified the companies that either that produce products and services that essentially serve the semiconductor sector. So they might not necessarily be at this point working directly with the cluster partners, but they may be with, on a global scale, providing services to the semiconductor sector. So this map really shows you the potential of the supply chain just at the minute based in South Wales and the UK, but I think beyond as well, that we have lots of capabilities, in across those areas that I mentioned before, that can really support the growth of the cluster. So with this supply chain call, our objective really is to support the expansion of the semiconductor supply chain in South Wales. We really want to increase the linkages to the cluster, and also start to build on strategic supplier relationships, and with the aim of creating new jobs in South Wales, increasing local spending, and also increasing sales as well. So just a bit of background about the programme. It's a total £1 million funding from Cardiff Capital Region. It was launched in March, and we've had 2 calls since then. So we've got five projects on the go. So there's around about, I think it's just under 500k in remaining funds that that we hope to be allocated in this next round. Then, depending on how this round goes, then there may be a 4th round. Just to let you know. So each project will have a maximum value of £100,000 in grant, with 50% match. There's a slightly different rate for micro companies. So micro companies can have up to 70% grant rate for up to 30k. There is a hybrid approach later, and I've got a slide that kind of goes into that a bit more a bit later. And then the closing date is in a few weeks' time, on Friday the 17th of December, at 4 o'clock. Again, on the next slide, I'll show you how you can apply if you haven't seen it already. And just to sort of define what we've called the primary cluster organisations in this box in the bottom right. So that would be IQE, Vishay, Microchip, CSE, KLA, Cardiff University, Swansea University, and the Catapult. So these are all the primary cluster organisations, and all projects need to have support from a PCO, and there needs to be a support letter. I will talk to that a bit more later. So how to apply, all the information is on our website through this link here. And I will be sharing slides later, so don't worry. And then there'll also be, I think I've duplicated this slide at the end just to kind of summarise. On the website, there are 2 very important documents. There's the guidance document, and there's also the application form as well. So it's the application form is a Word document. It's not an online form. So you just need to complete that and then email that to me by the closing date, along with any other documents. So it should be quite straightforward. And then the guidance document, again, that's just a PDF document with all the details on there. In terms of the timeline, then, as I said, the closing date's the 17th of December. The panel assessment will take place mid-January, and then applicants should be notified by the end of January. And then projects should then hopefully commence during February, at the start of February or during February. So that's the rough timeline. So here are the priorities of the investment. So priority A looks at upstream suppliers. So that would be existing or potential suppliers of the PCOs. So these projects might look to increase productivity in the supply chain or increase their capacity that might match a planned growth within a PCO, or it might fill supply chain gaps in the regional supply chain. And then on the downstream side, so these would be existing or potential customers of the PCOs. So it would basically, projects could increase downstream activity in the region, or try and develop further kind of linkages with the primary cluster organizations. So projects need to be led by a UK registered company. And so they're not led by a PCO. It's led by a UK registered company, which would be the sole recipient of the grant. One important thing to note is that grants will be awarded under the minimum financial assistance subsidy. So I think over a 3-year period, then there's a limit of £315,000, across any kind of subsidy that you might receive. So you just need to be aware of what other funding you may have received under that, and just make sure that you are eligible from that side of things. Okay, so what does a project team look like? A project team, as I've mentioned before, consists of the recipient, who would be the UK registered supplier, and then also there needs to be a link to a PCO. Another way to think about it is the PCO is a bit like what's the word? A kind of support, like I've forgotten the word now, sorry. But yeah, the PCO has to be is not in receipt of grant, but they are effectively supporting the project by providing a letter of support. So in terms of the letter of support, then the letter would need to outline why they support the project, and also what the level of commitment would be. So that could also include in-kind contributions. So there is an element of option to put down what in-kind contributions that could be, and that could just be simply in time, time in meetings that could be held, or time used to validate something that the project is doing. On the project team, you may also want to have a subcontractor if you want to. So that's an organisation that's kind of directly involved in delivering a task or milestone on the project, rather than just a normal supplier. There is an option to have a PCO as a subcontractor. And so in the guidance, it says that the value should not exceed 10% of the total grant value. So if it's a 100k in grant value, then it shouldn't exceed 10k. So that's the guidance. But there are exceptions. So make sure you do read the guidance document to see where to read about those exceptions. If you did, for example, want to use the CISM at the Cardiff University or Swansea University fab facilities, then there may be exceptions there, where it's absolutely critical to the project and absolutely critical to the supply chain relationship as well. So do have a close read of that. Also, it does say in the guidance that if that the services from a PCO should ideally be at cost, and where it's essential to validating a process or validating a manufacturing capability. So there has to be, explicit justification in the proposal there. But if you're not sure of anything, then please just drop me a line, and I'll be happy to talk about it. Okay. So this is a list of the eligibility criteria and how the proposals will be assessed. So all the projects need to meet all of the 8 criteria in order to be eligible, if you like. So the first one is the project needs to support the expansion of the semiconductor supply chain by enhancing or creating linkages to the PCOs. So, how does the proposals support the expansion of the cluster and its supply chain, essentially. Point number 2, how does it address priority A and priority B, which I outlined on an earlier slide. The third one, it does need to address a specific need or an opportunity within the primary cluster organization. So how does the project benefit the PCO? This kind of links into the fourth point as well. So all proposals need a letter of support from at least one PCO. So it can have multiple PCOs if you want to. The minimum is one. So it needs to detail their level of commitment. Why are they supporting the project? And what are they bringing to the project? Point number 5, there has to be economic impacts to the CCR region. So this is regional funding, so that needs to deliver economic benefits to the 10 local authorities in the CCR region, which are shown in the map on the right-hand side. Number 6 is to demonstrate how does the project lead to economic growth within your organization. If you're applying, then how does it impact your organization? So these projects, they are obviously meant to benefit the organization itself. Then it's not meant to be a program that brings that supports just the PCOs. There has to be a benefit to the company themselves that's applying, of course. And so be really sure to kind of explain how the project will benefit your company and also how it will lead to economic growth, such as jobs created, jobs safeguarded, increase in sales. So all these the way we've kind of defined economic impact within the project is through these KPIs. And then number 7, expect commercial outputs and benefits within a reasonable timescale. So this is what are the commercial outputs and benefits, and just be very clear to say to give values, and also what the timescale is expected. And the last one is demonstrate how the project supports innovation or a market differentiator, something that gives a competitive edge to the sector. So those are the 8 eligibility criteria. And I think, I've already mentioned the minimum financial assistance on the bottom left. That's very important. I think that's why I've put it twice. So all these will be assessed based on the application form. I think on the application form, there's also a table of deliverables and milestones and project costs. Actually, I've got a next slide here. So this next slide just kind of outlines all the different sections in the application form. So the top line, the subsidy control and minimum financial assistance, there's a question there. It's essentially just to check the eligibility. So just to emphasize, please be sure that you do meet that criteria in order to be eligible. The second section is just to outline who the project team are. So it'd be nice to give a bit of background on who the team are and also what they're bringing to the project on that section. 3 is just a summary for PR purposes for successful awards. And then from 4 onwards, these questions are directly assessed. So these do link to the essential criteria. And then, the project deliverables and milestones table is in section 8, costs and justification in section 9. And then there's the last 2 are on risks and other information. So under other information, it's just to summarize, if you've got letters of support, then list what they are. Feel free to add project plans and risk registers if that's what you want to do, or other, some people add diagrams and things if that helps, describe what the project does. So if you list that, and then you can, and then it can be attached to the email when it's sent to me on submission. Just to clarify then, intervention rates and project costs. So I mentioned before that that the projects tend to be on a 50% intervention rate if you're an SME. So if that's a maximum 100k grant value, so that would mean then the project cost is 200k. So it's 100k match, 100k grant value with 100k match. So the total is 200k. If you're a micro company, then you can receive a maximum 30k. Sorry, if you're a micro company, you can receive 30k grant at 70% intervention rate. Okay, but you can also do a hybrid approach where you can still receive up to 100k, but then that bit between the 30 and 100 would be at the 50% intervention rate. So that's what that last row is that if you were to take a scenario where you were to maximize the grant that you receive, then that would be the minimum project cost, if you like. I put minimum project cost because some projects, have said that they're happy to provide more match, but that's still at that capped grant rate of 100k. And what we mean by match is kind of outlined in that next bullet point here. So what it means that, if you've got a widget that costs £1,000, then the project can claim 50%, so £500 in grant value. And then as a company, then you'd provide you cover the other £500 in match contribution. In-kind costs can be listed as well in the application form. In addition, so it's kind of counted in addition to the total project cost. So it does provide added value and commitment to the project. For example, if a PCO is able to provide cost in staff time or something similar. Okay. Just an outline. Sorry about the kind of list. This is basically pulled out from the guidance document. Just to talk about things that the program will not fund. So it won't fund general business development, R&D projects that are low TRL, so TRL 1 to 3. So this time round, compared with the last call, we've kind of added a bit of clarification around what the TRL levels expected are. So we've said here that, we won't fund projects that are mid TRL level, but then we may make exceptions where there's basically clear intent to establish a long-term relationship, so a long-term strategic supply relationship with a PCO, and it also needs to be expected to lead to high commercial impact and economic outcomes as well. Again, if you're not sure, then please contact me. We also won't support projects where there's significant project costs allocated to a PCO as a subcontractor. Again, there are exceptions on this, but we really wanted the funding to go to the supplier rather than the PCOs. And then, where there's just general scoping activities to sort of justify the feasibility of the project, then that needs to be done before you actually apply. So that's not eligible as part of the project. And those last 3 points are really just a point to the criteria, just to emphasize the fact that all the 8 eligibility criteria need to be addressed in the proposals. Just some project examples then. So projects need to, just an example of projects. So projects could support like purchasing of capital equipment or installation of equipment that could bring new capabilities to your company. For example, just a small note there, it says that capital equipment does need prior authorization from CCR and CSconnected. It just needs to have sign off from us within the contract. But but yeah, that the capital on the capital equipment side, I think that's, yeah, we do have projects like that running at the minute, and they are really beneficial, especially when it helps the company bring new capabilities within the company, and also then helps one of the PCOs if they're hoping to expand as well. Then it kind of all sort of helps that plug that supply chain gap. Qualifications of products and services as well is a valid project example. And lastly, onshoring of a new supplier, either to the CCR region, to Wales, or the UK. And I've actually got some examples on the next slide. So these are examples from our first round. I think projects kicked off in July, so they've just into their second quarter now. So this project is with a company called Pegasus Chemicals, based up in North Wales. So they are a manufacturer of high purity chemicals for deposition. So they would be, could be supplying companies like IQE, but also Swansea University, to provide these kind of high purity metal organic materials. So all the gases tend to be stored in these cylinders pictured here. And so what the project is looking at is installing a cylinder preparation line, which can then reuse these cylinders. So that the line would basically clean, it would prepare them all, and then refill them once they've all been sort of cleaned out. So it's really going to help them to have a new capability in house. And then also drive shorter lead times for customers as well, like for customers like IQE. So yeah, that's the first project that with Pegasus Chemicals. This case study is from a company called RAM Innovations, again in North Wales. So it's about heterogeneous integration and packaging. So RAM Innovations, they are a company that has expertise in semiconductor electronics design, and specifically in embedded die packaging. So they through this project, they want to develop a blueprint for the first Welsh silicon carbide embedded die packaging line, which could then be licensed to customers like Vishay. So Vishay provided the letter of support here, and they will be providing feedback on the packaging line requirements. So the impact of that is the establishment of a high volume heterogeneous integration and packaging facility in the UK. Quasar Semi is a company based in Cardiff. And they are a company that is developing software for wide bandgap compound semiconductors. So it's called a TCAD tool. And through the project, they're developing this tool for silicon carbide and gallium nitride technologies, and really, delivering a product that is commercially ready, that can be kind of validated by Swansea University, Vishay, and the Catapult. So yeah, through this project, there'll be an established cost competitive, and I think that's what makes them different from other TCAD tool softwares, is that there'll be a cost competitive tool that's rooted in South Wales. And then lastly, this case study is from a company called Photoneg, on a project called Epi Workflow. So they're based at Cardiff, and they are a startup company offering photonics design services, design to device services. The aim of the project is to deliver a software tool for epitaxial design, development, and optimization, which then could be provided as a service to companies like IQE or CSE. For this particular project, CSE would be the PCO providing that feedback and evaluation. And then the kind of overall impact of the project is to kind of establish this epi design and development and optimization tool, specifically as a service. So I think this is my last slide. So this is just a long list of procurement items and services from our the PCOs. So this has been gathered from slides that were presented at the last supply chain events, where each of the partners presented a slide and presented what their kind of procurement requirements are. So I won't go through all those, but I will share the slides later on so that you can read them carefully for yourselves. Yeah, and that's that slide again about how to apply for the funding. So do have a look at the guidance document and application form on the website. Okay.